Garbage rain. The night sky was heavy with smoke and dust. The air smelled of rot and burned metal. In the middle of the settlement, the alien girl stood quietly, her arms folded around her thin body. She was small compared to the others, her frame weak, her eyes glowing faintly blue. But in that moment, those eyes were full of fear. She had done nothing wrong, yet she had been dragged here to the trash pit. Voices rose around her, mocking, cruel, sharp like knives cutting into her heart. The crowd of aliens shouted and laughed, pointing their fingers at her. She wanted to cover her ears, but she knew it would not stop the sound. One of the larger aliens lifted a heavy container above his head, and without a warning, he dumped it. Garbage rained down over her, broken scraps, rotting food, foul water. It poured across her skin and clothes, tearing what little she wore. She gasped, stumbling, her small hands shaking as she tried to wipe the filth away. But the more she tried, the more it spread. Her body was uncovered, her shame laid bare before everyone. The crowd roared with laughter, their eyes bright with cruelty. "Look at her, garbage girl," one of them shouted. "She belongs in the trash," another voice echoed, and more hands threw scraps. Her body trembled. She fell to her knees, hugging herself, her face buried against her arms. She wanted to disappear into the dirt. She wanted the earth to swallow her. Tears ran down her cheeks, mixing with the mud. She whispered words no one could hear, words of pain and begging for it to end. But no one cared. They wanted her broken. From the edge of the crowd, a pair of human eyes watched. The man stood tall, a stranger among aliens, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his side. He had seen cruelty before. He had seen war. But this was different. This was slow, deliberate humiliation. It made his chest burn, his heart pound. He wanted to look away, to walk away, because he knew if he interfered, he would pay the price. But he could not move. The alien girl lifted her head for a moment, her hair stuck with filth, her glowing eyes red with tears, and in that moment their eyes met, hers pleading, his burning with rage, and that look was enough. Another alien stepped forward, this one holding a bucket full of sludge. He lifted it high, aiming to pour it on her again. The girl raised her arms weakly, whispering no, her voice breaking. The bucket tipped. But before the garbage could fall, the human moved, his boots striking the dirt. His hand shot out, grabbing the bucket and yanking it away. The sludge splashed onto the ground instead of the girl. The crowd gasped. Silence cut through the laughter. All eyes turned to him. The alien holding the bucket growled, "Human, this is not your place." But the human's eyes were locked on the trembling girl. She looked so small, so fragile, her thin shoulders shaking, her clothes hanging in tatters. She was no warrior, no threat, just a girl thrown into cruelty. And he felt something inside him snap. He dropped the bucket, stepping closer to her, his jacket sliding from his shoulders. Without a word, he bent down and wrapped it around her shivering frame. Her small fingers clutched the fabric, holding it tight against her body, as if it was the only piece of dignity left to her. The crowd erupted in anger, voices shouting, "Leave her! She is filth! You dare touch garbage?" They pressed forward, their eyes full of hate. Some lifted stones, others clenched fists. The human stood tall, one arm shielding the girl, his voice low but steady. "Enough." The girl's head rested against his side, her lips trembled, but no words came. Her tears stained his shirt, her body was weak, but in her heart a new spark lit. For the first time someone had touched her, not with cruelty, but with kindness. The air grew tense, the crowd closing in, their shadows stretching over the dirt. The human's grip tightened around her, his eyes flicking from side to side, searching for a way out, his breath steady, but his heart racing. He knew he had made his choice, and there was no turning back. Garbage still dripped from her hair. The smell of rot hung thick in the air, but in that moment she no longer felt only shame. She felt the warmth of his jacket, the shield of his body, and the fire of his defiance. The crowd roared, the night trembled, the hook pulled tighter, because what came next would decide both their fates, the human's choice. The human stood firm in the middle of the circle, his jacket already wrapped around the alien girl's shivering body, her small frame pressed against his side. The crowd of aliens stared at him with wide, furious eyes. Their laughter was gone. Now it was only anger, heavy and sharp like knives waiting to cut. For a moment, silence stretched. Only the girl's soft sobs broke the air. Then one voice shouted from the back, "Leave her, human. She is trash. She is not yours." Another voice added, "You dare touch her? You think she is worth saving?" The crowd's voices rose, louder and louder, like a storm building. The human's jaw clenched, his heart beating fast. He knew the risk. He had lived among these aliens long enough to know what they thought of humans. Weak, outsiders, intruders. And now he was standing between them and their victim. This was no small defiance. It was a challenge. He looked down at the alien girl, her eyes closed tight, her fingers gripping his jacket as if her life depended on it. And something inside him whispered. He could still step back. He could push her away, pretend it was a mistake, and the crowd might spare him. But when he imagined her left alone in the dirt, naked and broken under their laughter, he felt rage rise again. He shook his head slowly, his voice calm but firm. "She is not garbage," he said. I'm back. Words cutting through the shouts like a blade. "Not while I stand here." The crowd growled, their bodies pushing closer. One alien, tall and broad, stepped forward, his scales shining under the dim streetlight, his voice deep and threatening. "Human, you do not belong here. Leave her, or you will share her fate." His hand reached out, long claws ready to pull the girl away. The human took a single step back, pulling the girl tighter into his arms, her head pressed against his chest. She whispered, her voice trembling, "Please, don't let them." He placed his hand gently on her hair. "I won't," he answered, his tone steady, though his blood boiled inside. The alien growled, raising his arm as if to strike, but the human's eyes locked on him, sharp, burning with defiance, and for a moment the alien froze, confused by the fire in those human eyes. The crowd grew restless. Some demanded blood, some shouted insults, others laughed bitterly. Look at him, protecting filth. A human saving trash, how fitting. Their words struck like stones, but the human didn't move. He knew he couldn't fight them all. He wasn't foolish. He had no weapon, no plan, only instinct and a promise he made silently. To not abandon this girl, no matter what. His mind raced, searching for a path out, a shadowed alley, a gap in the circle, any chance to escape, but each way was blocked. The girl lifted her face, her eyes wet with tears. She looked at him as if he was the last light in her world. Her lips moved. "Why? Why help me?" she whispered, her voice so soft he almost missed it. His heart ached at the question. How could he explain that he simply couldn't watch cruelty and do nothing? How could he explain that her shame cut into him like a wound of his own? He only answered with 4 words, "Because you deserve better." She blinked, stunned, her breath catching in her throat. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever stood for her. For a moment, even in the chaos, she felt a strange warmth spreading in her chest. The aliens shouted again, breaking the moment. The tall, scaled one lunged forward, swinging his heavy arm. The human twisted, pulling the girl behind him. The strike missed, smashing against the dirt. Dust flying. The crowd roared, their anger spilling over. The human didn't wait. His legs moved, fast, dragging the girl with him. He pushed through a narrow gap. The crowd shouted and followed. Footsteps thundered behind them. "Catch him! Don't let them escape!" The chase began. The girl stumbled, her feet weak, but the human's grip was strong, pulling her forward, his breath hard, sweat running down his face. He could hear stones crashing against walls, fists pounding the dirt. The crowd was close. Every second counted. "Hold on!" he shouted, and she clung to his hand, her heart racing, her bare feet bleeding as they struck sharp stones. But she didn't let go, not even once. The narrow street twisted, shadows swallowed them, the human's eyes darted left and right, searching. Always searching. The girl gasped, her voice breaking. "They will kill us." He answered through clenched teeth. "Not if I can help it." The noise behind them grew louder, closer. The aliens were faster, stronger. The girl cried out when a stone grazed her shoulder, but the human pulled her tighter, shielding her with his body as they ran. The chase pressed them into a corner. A dead end loomed. The girl's breath hitched, fear flooding her face. "We're trapped," she whispered, her knees weak. The human's eyes narrowed, his chest rising and falling. He pressed her against the wall, his body in front of hers like a shield, his mind racing. The crowd poured in, their shadows filling the narrow alley, their laughter cruel, their eyes glowing with triumph. "Nowhere left to run," human one sneered. "Give her back and we may let you crawl away." The human didn't answer, his stance firm. The Elle's hand gripped the back of his shirt, her voice trembling. "Don't leave me." His hand brushed hers gently, his voice steady. "Never." And just as the first alien lunged forward, a faint sound echoed. A creak, soft but clear, from the wall behind them. The girl's eyes widened, a hidden door shifting in the darkness. The human's choice was clear. He had already made it. He would fight, or he would run, but one thing he would never do was let her go. Escape through the shadows. The hidden door creaked wider, its hinges old and rusted, the sound almost lost in the shouts of the crowd. The human's sharp eyes caught it instantly, a thin line of darkness beyond the wall, a possible way out. He didn't wait to think, his instincts screamed. This was their only chance. He pressed the girl closer, his voice urgent but soft. "Stay close, don't let go." She nodded weakly, her hand trembling as it clutched his arm, her face pale from fear, her bare feet stinging from cuts. But in her glowing eyes, there was a fragile spark of trust. The aliens lunged, but the human twisted, pulling the girl toward the door. His shoulder slammed against the old wood. It groaned and swung open just enough. He shoved her through first, then followed, slamming it shut behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. The crowd roared, fists and claws pounded against the door, their voices like thunder. "Open it! Tear it down!" The girl gasped, her body shaking, but the human held her hand tightly, guiding her deeper into the black corridor. The space was narrow, damp, and full of dust. The walls rough stone, the ground uneven. The girl stumbled again and again, but he never let her fall. Each time his strong hand pulled her forward, each time his voice whispered, "Keep moving." Behind them the door rattled, wood cracking. The aliens were strong, it would not hold for long. Their footsteps echoed like drums in the dark. The human's breath grew heavy, his heart racing, but his mind sharp. He needed distance, he needed time. The corridor bent sharply, leading them into a maze of shadows. Faint streams of light slipped through cracks above, showing glimpses of broken crates, rusted pipes, and scattered bones. It looked like an old forgotten storage passage, abandoned by the settlement long ago. The girl's voice broke the silence, trembling. Why risk yourself for me?" Her question lingered in the dark, heavy, painful. The human glanced at her, sweat dripping down his forehead, his eyes serious. "Because no one else will." She blinked, her lips parting, his words sinking deep into her heart. No one had ever said such a thing to her. No one had ever stood by her side. Her chest ached, not from pain, but from something new, something she couldn't yet name. The pounding at the door grew louder, wood splintering. The aliens would break through soon. The human tightened his grip on her, quickening their pace, but every turn seemed endless. The corridor stretched like a maze designed to trap them. At one point, the girl stumbled hard, her knees hitting the stone, a sharp cry escaping her lips. The human crouched instantly, lifting her into his arms without a second thought, her small frame light against his chest. She gasped, clinging to his shirt. "I can walk," she whispered weakly, but he shook his head. "You've suffered enough. Let me carry you." Her heart pounded as she pressed her cheek against him, her tears hot against his chest. No one had ever carried her with care. No one had ever called her suffering enough. The moment carved into her soul. The passage narrowed, the ceiling lower, the air thick. The human pushed on, his muscles burning, his breath heavy. Yet he did not stop. The girl could hear his heartbeat, steady, strong, and for the first time she felt safe. Then, suddenly, a sharp crack echoed behind them. The door had shattered. Alien voices filled the passage. Claws circled, raping stone. Their hunt was back on. The girl stiffened, her voice panicked. "They're coming." The human's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the shadows ahead. The path split into two tunnels, one left, one right. He had no time to think, no map to guide him, only instinct. He turned right, his boots striking against wet stone, his breath loud in the silence. Behind them, the aliens roared, their steps pounding closer. The tunnel twisted again, climbing upward, faint light glowing ahead. The human's eyes narrowed, hope flickered. An exit, maybe. But hope was fragile here. The girl raised her head, whispering, "Why do they hate me?" Her voice was soft, broken. The human's chest tightened at her words. He answered between breaths, "Because they fear what they don't understand." His words were simple, but they struck deep. She stared at him, her tears mixing with dirt, wondering how a human could understand her pain more than her own people. The light ahead grew stronger, the tunnel opening into a cracked wall that led outside. The human rushed forward, stepping into the cold night air. The girl's eyes widened as the stars spread above them, a sky full of endless darkness and light. But there was no time to marvel. The aliens poured out of the tunnel behind them, their shouts echoing in the night. "There! Don't let them escape!" Stones flew past, one grazing the human's shoulder, tearing his skin, blood dripping. But he did not falter, his grip on the girl tighter than ever. The land outside was broken, old ruins scattered, tall walls collapsed into piles of stone, shadows stretched everywhere. It was a graveyard of the forgotten, the perfect place to hide, or to be cornered. The human's mind raced, scanning the ruins. He spotted a narrow gap between two collapsed walls, just wide enough for them. He darted toward it, his heart pounding, his legs burning. The girl, holding on to him, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Behind them, the aliens grew closer, their claws scraping the stone, their footsteps shaking the ground. But the human didn't look back, his eyes only on the shadows ahead. He slid through the narrow gap, pressing the girl against his chest. Stones scraped his back, but he forced himself through, into deeper shadows where the aliens could not see. He crouched low, holding her close, both of them breathing hard. The girl's small hand gripped his shirt, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, her whisper trembling. "They won't stop." The human's voice was low, steady, a promise etched in steel. "Neither will I." The night grew still, the ruins silent, but the hunt was not over. Their escape through the shadows had only begun, shelter of secrets. The ruins were silent, broken stones piled high like forgotten graves. The human crouched low, his arms wrapped tightly around the trembling alien girl. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. The chase had ended for now, but the danger still lingered close. The girl's glowing eyes flickered in the dark, her body weak, her face pale, dirt and blood mixed on her skin. She clutched his jacket tighter around her, whispering through trembling lips, "They will find us. They always do." Her voice carried fear that came not only from this night, but from a lifetime of cruelty. The human looked into her frightened eyes, his jaw firm. "Not while I breathe," he said, his tone steady like iron. She blinked, startled by the certainty in his words. No one had ever spoken for her like this. Carefully, he guided her deeper into the ruins, his boots crunching against loose stones, each sound echoing too loudly. His sharp eyes scanned every shadow, every broken wall, searching for a place to hide. The night air was cold, biting against their skin. At last he found it. An old structure half buried in stone, its doorway broken but still standing. The walls cracked, but tall enough to shield them. He pulled her inside, the darkness wrapping round them like a cloak. The place smelled of dust and rust. Broken crates lay scattered, old tools long forgotten. Faint moonlight slipped through holes in the roof, painting pale lines across the floor. The girl sank against the wall, her small body curling into itself. She pulled the jacket tighter, her face hidden in the fabric. The human crouched beside her, his hand gentle as he brushed filth from her hair. She flinched at first, unused to kindness, then slowly lifted her eyes to him. Why do you keep helping me?" she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with desperate curiosity. He paused, his breath heavy, searching for the right words. "Because no one else would," he answered finally. "Because you deserve more than pain." His voice was soft but steady, carrying a weight she felt deep inside. Tears welled in her eyes. She lowered her face, ashamed of the weakness pouring out of her. "All my life, they called me worthless, too small, too weak, not fit to be one of them." Her hands shook as she gripped the jacket tighter. "So they made me their joke, their trash. And tonight..." Her voice broke. She could not finish. The human's chest tightened, anger burning in his veins. He wanted to storm out and fight every one of those who had hurt her, but instead he placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch firm yet gentle. "You are not trash," he said. "You are alive. You matter. Don't let them take that from you." She froze at his words, staring at him as if he spoke a language she had never heard before. Her lips trembled. "Why do you sound so sure?" He looked away, his eyes hard in the dim light. "Because I've been there," he admitted, his voice low. "I've been treated like dirt, less than nothing. I know that pain, but I swore I'd never let anyone suffer like that if I could stop it." Her heart ached at his confession. Her glowing eyes softened for the first time. A first time she saw not just a savior, but someone who carried his own scars. Outside, faint sounds echoed, footsteps, voices. The aliens were still searching. Their anger had not faded. The girl stiffened, her breath quick. "They're close," she whispered, her fingers clutching his sleeve. The human's body tensed, his sharp ears picking up every sound. He moved closer to the doorway, peering through the cracks. Shadows shifted outside, but none had yet found this ruined shelter. He turned back to her, his finger against his lips, signaling silence. She nodded, curling smaller, hiding her glow beneath the jacket. Minutes crawled by like hours. Every heartbeat loud, every creak of stone dangerous. The human stayed near the doorway, his muscles ready, his mind sharp. If they were found, he would fight until he could not stand. At last, the voices drifted further, the footsteps fading into the distance. He exhaled slowly, his hand relaxing against the wall, but the silence after was heavy, pressing against both of them. The girl whispered again, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you leave me when they surrounded us?" The human turned back to her, his eyes steady. "Because walking away would have made me one of them." His words struck her harder than any stone. She realized that in saving her, he had chosen a path no one else dared, a path that tied his fate to hers. She leaned against the wall, exhaustion pulling her down, her eyes half closing. But before sleep claimed her, she whispered a fragile promise. "If they come, I won't let them take you. Even if I'm weak, I'll try." Her words made him pause, his chest tightening. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to fight, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She needed to feel she had worth even in her weakness, so he only nodded. "We'll face them together." The night stretched long, the broken shelter their only shield. The girl rested at last, her breathing soft, her face calmer in sleep. The human sat awake beside her, his eyes never close. Sing, his mind sharp, his body ready. The ruins were quiet now, but the silence felt fragile, like glass waiting to shatter. Danger still lingered outside, and when it came, he knew he would stand again. For now, though, in this shelter of secrets, a bond had begun, fragile but unbreakable, a bond that neither garbage nor shame could destroy. The shame and the bond. The night in the ruins stretched endlessly, broken walls casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. Inside the shelter, the alien girl stirred, her breathing soft, her body curled into itself. The human sat beside her, his back against the cracked stone wall, his eyes sharp, always scanning the doorway. He had not slept, not even for a second. Every sound outside kept him alert. The crunch of stones, the hiss of the wind, the faint echo of footsteps in the distance. The hunters were still searching, he knew it. But for this moment, silence had given them a fragile peace. The girl slowly opened her eyes, blinking in the dim light. For a second she looked confused, as if expecting more garbage to rain down, more laughter, more claws tearing at her. But instead she saw the human, still beside her, still guarding, his jacket still wrapped around her thin body, her lips parted in disbelief. He had not left. Her voice was weak, almost a whisper. "You stayed." The human turned his head, his expression calm but his eyes soft. "I told you I wouldn't leave." She swallowed hard, tears pricking her glowing eyes. Shame washed over her. She pulled the jacket tighter, hiding her body. Her voice broke. You saw me like that, covered in filth, exposed in front of everyone. I can never forget it." Her hands shook as she spoke, her shame heavy like chains. The human leaned closer, his tone firm but gentle. "Listen to me. What I saw was not shame. What I saw was cruelty. Done to you, not by you." His words cut deep, his voice steady. "The shame is theirs, not yours." She froze, staring at him, her lips trembling. No one had ever said that before.